I see your messages every single day. Messages from people who are scared, confused, and genuinely worried after reading something online that says they might lose their status, their green card, or even their citizenship. I want you to take a deep breath right now because today we're going to clear up the confusion together. We're going to separate the rumors from the reality, look at what the actual law says, and give you the facts you need to protect yourself and your family. No fear-mongering, no exaggeration, just the truth delivered with clarity and compassion. Let me start by saying something really important. U.S. citizenship is one of the most protected statuses in American law. Once you become a U.S. citizen, losing that citizenship is extremely rare and happens only under very specific serious circumstances that are clearly defined by federal law. This isn't something that happens by accident. And it's not something that changes based on whoever is in office or whatever viral post you saw on social media last week. The legal standards for losing citizenship have been established through decades of court decisions and federal statutes, and they require due process, which means formal legal proceedings, not sudden deportations or overnight changes. But here's why people get scared. You see headlines that say things like, "New policy could strip citizenship or immigrants targeted in latest crackdown." And naturally, your heart starts racing. You wonder if you're safe, if your family is safe, if all those years of hard work and following the rules even matter anymore. I understand that fear completely. And that's exactly why we need to talk about this topic carefully and factually today. So let's be very clear about what we're discussing. We're going to walk through the 5 actual legal circumstances under which U.S. citizenship can be revoked or relinquished according to current enforceable federal law, not proposed bills, not draft legislation, not something a politician mentioned in a speech. We're talking about the law as it exists and is applied right now in January 2026. And for those of you who are green card holders, permanent residents who haven't naturalized yet, we're also going to discuss why this information matters to you and what protections you currently have and don't have. Before we go any further, I need to give you the standard legal disclaimer. The information I'm sharing today is educational and general in nature. It is not personalized legal advice for your specific situation. Immigration law is complex and every case has unique factors. If you have specific concerns about your status, you should always consult with a licensed immigration attorney who can review your individual circumstances. Additionally, always verify information by checking official government websites like USCIS.gov, the State Department website, or the Department of Homeland Security. Don't rely solely on social media posts, forwarded messages, or even YouTube videos, including this one, for legal decisions. Use this information as a starting point, then verify and consult with qualified professionals. Now let's talk about the first way citizenship can be lost, and this is probably the most commonly discussed one: denaturalization for fraud or willful misrepresentation during the naturalization process. What does this actually mean? It means that if someone obtained their U.S. citizenship by lying on their naturalization application, hiding important information, or committing fraud during the immigration process, the government can go to federal court and ask a judge to revoke that citizenship. But, and this is crucial, this requires a formal legal process. The government must file a lawsuit in federal court. You have the right to an attorney. You have the right to defend yourself. A federal judge has to make the determination based on evidence. This is not an administrative process where an immigration officer just cancels your citizenship. This goes through the federal court system with all the constitutional protections that entails. What kind of fraud or misrepresentation are we talking about? Examples would include lying about your identity, hiding a serious criminal history, concealing past immigration violations, providing false documents, or lying about your marital status to gain immigration benefits. These are serious, intentional acts of deception. We're not talking about minor mistakes on paperwork or forgetting a date. We're talking about material misrepresentation, meaning lies about important facts that, if known, would have affected the decision to grant you citizenship in the first place. And here's something really important to understand. There has been discussion in recent years under different administrations about increasing denaturalization efforts. You may have seen news articles about the government creating task forces or reviewing old cases. This is real. These efforts do exist. but the legal standard hasn't changed. The government still has to prove in federal court that fraud or willful misrepresentation occurred. They still have to follow due process. Your rights as a U.S. citizen are still protected by the Constitution. Has there been an increase in denaturalization cases being filed? Yes, the numbers have gone up compared to previous decades, but we're still talking about a very small number compared to the millions of naturalized citizens in the United States. This is not a mass revocation program. It's targeted enforcement focused on cases where there's evidence of serious fraud. The second way citizenship can be lost is through voluntary renunciation. This means you, as a U.S. citizen, decide on your own that you want to give up your American citizenship. This is a formal process that typically happens at a U.S. embassy or consulate in another country. You have to appear in person before a consular officer. You have to sign specific documents, and you have to confirm that you understand what you're doing, and that you're doing it voluntarily, not under duress or coercion. The U.S. government actually tries to talk people out of this because renouncing citizenship is permanent and has serious consequences, including potential tax implications and the inability to live or work in the United States in the future without going through the immigration process like any other foreign national. Some people renounce U.S. citizenship for tax reasons because they've established their lives permanently in another country, or because another country they want citizenship in doesn't allow dual nationality. But this is always a voluntary choice. The government cannot force you to renounce your citizenship. If anyone tells you that new policies will force citizens to give up their citizenship, that is false. Renunciation must be voluntary to be legally valid. The third way is through certain acts of treason or attempting to overthrow the U.S. government. This is outlined in the Immigration and Nationality Act. If a naturalized citizen is convicted of participating in activities intended to overthrow the U.S. government by force, or is convicted of treason, or joins or serves in the armed forces of a country that is engaged in hostilities against the United States, these actions can result in loss of citizenship. But again, we're talking about convictions, formal legal proceedings, and acts of extreme disloyalty to the country. We're not talking about political speech, peaceful protests, or criticizing the government. Those activities are protected by the First Amendment. We're talking about actual criminal conduct or actively fighting against the United States in a military capacity for a hostile foreign power. These cases are extraordinarily rare. The fourth circumstance involves serving in a foreign military or government. If a naturalized U.S. citizen voluntarily serves in the armed forces of a foreign country that is engaged in hostilities against the United States, or serves in a foreign military as a commissioned or non-commissioned officer, or takes a policy-level position in a foreign government, these actions can be considered acts of expatriation, meaning acts that indicate you've abandoned your U.S. citizenship. However, this area of law is very complex, and the courts have held that there must be intent to relinquish citizenship. Just taking a job in a foreign country's government or serving in a foreign military doesn't automatically mean you lose citizenship. The U.S. government would have to show that you intended to give up your U.S. citizenship by taking these actions. Many countries allow dual citizenship, and many Americans work for foreign governments or serve in allied foreign militaries without losing their U.S. citizenship. The key factors are whether the foreign country is hostile to the United States and whether there's evidence you intended to abandon your U.S. citizenship. The fifth situation involves conviction of certain very serious crimes committed before naturalization but concealed during the naturalization process. If you were convicted of certain serious offenses before you naturalized and you failed to disclose these convictions on your naturalization application, this could be grounds for denaturalization. This ties back to the fraud and misrepresentation issue I mentioned earlier. The naturalization application specifically asks about your criminal history. If you lie about it or omit serious convictions and this is later discovered, the government can pursue denaturalization. This is why it's absolutely critical to be completely honest on all immigration applications. Work with an immigration attorney if you have any criminal history, even if you think it's minor or old. Let the attorney advise you on how to properly disclose it and whether it will affect your eligibility. Trying to hide criminal history almost always makes things worse if it's discovered later. Now, let me address something really important for all the green card holders watching this video. Everything I've discussed so far applies to U.S. citizens. People who have already naturalized. If you're a lawful permanent resident, someone who has a green card but hasn't become a citizen yet, your situation is different. Permanent residence is not the same as citizenship. It's a privilege that can be revoked or lost under various circumstances. You can lose your permanent resident status for things like committing certain crimes, abandoning your residence in the United States by living abroad for extended periods, fraud, snorts, and obtaining your green card, failing to file taxes, or even certain criminal convictions that make you deportable. This is one of the main reasons why, if you're eligible to naturalize, you should seriously consider doing so. Citizenship provides much stronger protections than permanent residence. Citizens cannot be deported. Citizens have the right to vote. Citizens can sponsor family members more easily. Citizens can travel freely without worrying about abandoned residence. If you've had your green card for 5 years or 3 years if you're married to a U.S. citizen and you meet the other requirements, talk to an immigration attorney about naturalization. Don't wait. Don't assume you'll do it later. The protections that come with citizenship are significant and permanent. Let me also address some common misinformation I see spreading online. First, no. The government cannot just decide to revoke citizenship based on your political opinions, your religion, your country of origin, or because you criticized a politician. Your citizenship is protected by the Constitution. The government cannot denaturalize you without going through federal court and proving fraud, or one of the other specific legal grounds I've discussed. Second, proposed legislation is not law. You'll often see articles that say new bill could allow or proposed law would make it easier to until a bill passes both houses of Congress and is signed by the president. It's not law, it's a proposal. It might never become law. Don't panic over proposed legislation. Pay attention to what actually gets enacted. Third, executive orders and policy changes cannot override constitutional protections or statutory law. An executive order cannot change the legal standards for denaturalization. Those standards are set by federal statute and court precedent. Policy changes can affect how aggressively the government pursues certain cases, but they can't change the fundamental legal requirements. So, what should you actually do with this information? First, if you went through the immigration process honestly, disclosed all required information, didn't commit fraud, and obtained your citizenship legitimately, you have nothing to worry about. You're not going to lose your citizenship. The vast majority of naturalized U.S. citizens will never face denaturalization proceedings because they didn't do anything wrong in the first place. Second, if you're currently going through the immigration process, whether you're applying for a green card or naturalization, be completely honest on all forms and in all interviews. Disclose everything that's asked for. If you have questions about whether something needs to be disclosed, ask an immigration attorney before you submit your application. Honesty is always the best policy and it protects you in the long run. Third, if you're a green card holder and you're eligible to naturalize, seriously consider doing it. The protections of citizenship are significant, and the process, while requiring time and money, is worth it for the long-term security it provides. Fourth, keep copies of all your immigration documents. Keep your naturalization certificate in a safe place. If you travel internationally, carry proof of your citizenship. Maintain good records. Fifth, and I cannot stress this enough, if you have any concerns about your status, if you made mistakes on past applications, if you're worried about something in your history, consult with a licensed immigration attorney. Don't try to figure this out on your own. Don't rely on advice from friends or social media. Immigration law is complex, and an attorney can review your specific situation and give you proper guidance. Many immigration attorneys offer consultations for a reasonable fee. It's worth the investment for peace of mind and proper advice. Also, be very careful about where you get your information. There are a lot of scams targeting immigrants. People who aren't lawyers claiming they can help you with immigration issues, often called notarios in some communities. These people cannot provide legal advice and often do more harm than good. Only work with licensed attorneys or Board of Immigration Appeals, accredited representatives working for recognized nonprofit organizations. You can verify an attorney's license through your state bar association. You can verify BIA accreditation through the Department of Justice website. I also want to remind you that immigration laws exist in a political environment and that environment changes. What I've told you today is accurate as of January 2026 based on current federal law and how it's being applied. Things can change. New laws can be passed, court decisions can modify how existing laws are interpreted. Enforcement priorities can shift with new administrations. This is why it's important to stay informed, but to get your information from reliable sources. Follow official government websites. Follow reputable immigration law organizations. Subscribe to channels like this one that provide factual, balanced information. Don't rely on viral social media posts or forwarded messages that often contain misinformation or outdated information. And please try not to live in constant fear. I know the immigration system can feel overwhelming and uncertain. I know that when you've worked so hard to build a life here, the thought of losing it is terrifying. But remember that the system, despite its flaws, has legal protections built into it. You have rights. Due process matters. Courts review government actions. If you followed the rules, been honest, and obtained your status legitimately, you're protected by law. Focus on what you can control. Being honest in your dealings with immigration authorities, keeping good records, naturalizing when you're eligible, consulting with attorneys when needed, and staying informed through reliable sources. The immigration conversation in this country is often filled with heated rhetoric, fear-based messaging, and misinformation from all sides. My goal with this channel is to cut through that noise and give you facts, to help you understand what's real and what's rumor, to empower you to make informed decisions about your immigration journey, to remind you that you're not alone, that millions of people have walked this path before you, and that accurate information is your best tool for navigating it successfully. Thank you so much for watching today. If this video helped bring you some clarity and peace of mind, please subscribe to Immigration Desk USA so you can stay updated with accurate, factual immigration information that you can trust. Hit that notification bell so you never miss an important update. Give this video a like if you found it valuable, and please share it with your family members, your friends, your community members, anyone who might be worried or confused about these issues. We help each other by sharing reliable information. Leave a comment below telling me what other immigration topics you'd like me to cover, what questions you have, or what concerns are weighing on your mind. I read the comments and they help me create content that serves your needs. Remember, knowledge is power, and staying informed with accurate information is the best way to protect yourself and your family. I'll see you in the next video. And until then, stay informed, stay hopeful, and take care of yourself and your loved ones.